We'll get going here. Welcome, everyone. It's exciting to be with you today. We appreciate your time and appreciate you, giving up a little bit of your day to come and hang out with us for a while. Just started the recording, so just another note that that is going to be recorded and available for on-demand viewing later. And everyone can get started and join Slido here. This is just our QR code and the number that you can join from your phone. Just a fun interactive addition to today. And then just a few housekeeping items before we get started. That participation worksheet is linked in the chat. You'll see the link there, but also in your resources tab at the bottom menu, you can click on that fillable participant worksheet. You can open that with just your preferred reader and follow along with some structured notes that we have here. And then in addition to the participant worksheet, feel free to use that chat box to comment or ask questions. We will ask you to respond via your Slido link with some different interactive things. But if you have any questions or resources or anything you'd like to share, we'd love to hear that. So feel free to use that chat. We'll definitely have time at the end to answer any of those questions. Also wanted you to know that you can turn on closed captioning for this webinar today. There is a CC button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. It might be under the More icon that will enable that function, just depending on how your Zoom is set up there. And again, this is being recorded for on-demand viewing later. So now we'll get started with a Slido trial. This will just get everybody used to Slido and how we're using that there. It's one of my favorites. That we do as a part of these webinars. I think it's fun. So I am always looking for a new playlist or anything, to share. So we love to have everybody share maybe a fall morning song or fire pit song, whatever is. Oh, we've got a strong start. I like that one too. Awesome ideas. Just things that maybe remind us of fall, or if you were gonna maybe you're crossing your fingers like me for a cool morning or a cool evening here coming up that you could actually sit outside and enjoy a fire pit. Oh, I like these. Good suggestions here. It always depends, kind of the fall and kind of relaxing vibes a little bit. These are good choices. I like it. Awesome. Maybe we've all got a little bit of maybe this will be some of our notes that we're taking here, things we can add to our playlist or our collections here. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. There's some good artists here too. Even the titles are, yeah, giving me some fall things here. I love it. Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody. I'm excited to be here today to present information on one of my favorite things, enhancing teletherapy for some essential tools for speech therapy success. I think this is a fun kind of interactive thing that we can get into today. And so I'm excited to get started. You can receive a certificate of attendance for today's webinar. In order to receive that certificate, you must attend this course in its entirety and complete that post-webinar survey, evaluation, and test. This course is eligible for point 0.1 ASHA CEU upon passing that post-course evaluation. These requirements must be completed within 24 hours of the course ending, just FYI. And for our SLPs, if you would like for us to report your completion of this course to ASHA, you will be asked to complete an ASHA CE reporting section on that post workshop evaluation and test. But we will remind you about that at the end of the webinar today. So nothing that you have to hang on to right now. All other disciplines who might be with us today and meet those course completion requirements will receive a certificate of attendance. Just a disclosure quickly, I am affiliated with eLuma Online Therapy Services, a provider of school-based teletherapy services, but I don't endorse or receive any compensation from any products or services included in the presentation today. I'm Sarah Plunket. It's really nice to have you guys here with us today. I always have to do the math on this one, but I have been a speech language pathologist for 17 years, a variety of settings, a lot of different medical settings, public school settings, and also teletherapy. I actually contracted with eLuma for a couple of years as a clinician before transitioning over to my role here as a clinical services specialist. There are no other financial or non-financial disclosures, so we can go ahead and get started. We will move into Slido. I know we use that for our fire pit kind of song here, but we're also going to use it for some polls to get started and then also for some test your knowledge questions as we get going. So first, we'd love to know what your discipline is here, and so you can use, that Slido. Kind of click on, see lots of SLPs as we figured, but it's always nice to see for me who all's here and kind of everyone's discipline. That's awesome. And I know we've got a couple questions in the chat there, and we're getting those taken care of. So thank you guys. Wonderful. Welcome again, everybody. And how about our schools? What type of schools are we working with? All right. Looks like a good mix here for sure. Lots of public schools, some charter schools, and then, yeah, some not working in the schools. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And this is always an interesting one, the primary grades. I think, a lot of schools are divided different ways, different by ages and grades. So wonderful. A really good mix with everything there, it looks like so far. There's a lot of great content and resources that we're going to talk about today that I think can really apply across all ages. Some of it, it might be used in a different way for older students, but there's all the content today can really be tailored and used in, yeah, a lot of different grade levels. So wonderful. And then just a fun last one here. We're going to come back to this at the end of the webinar, but I'd love to know how you rate your knowledge of teletherapy. I always like to say we all have varying experiences for the last, several years. And so just like to see how you would rate that knowledge. And like I said, we'll come back to that at the end of the webinar and see if that's changed a little bit. All right. Good overall. Can see those bars moving. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm excited to get started, so we'll go ahead and do that today. Here is what we're going to learn about today. You can find these outcomes listed in your handout. As an engaged participant, this is the knowledge you'll walk away with at the end of our webinar. You will be able to summarize 3 considerations for a successful speech teletherapy session. You'll be able to list 5 of the most commonly used therapy materials available for virtual sessions. And then you'll be able to identify 3 activities that can target multiple goals within a session. I know that's important. In my experience in the schools, students are working on a variety of goals. And so it's nice to have those activities ready that can target multiple goals there. So we'd love to see, based on that, what you're most excited to learn about today. You can kind of rank those. Um, just based on kind of the intro and the getting started, what you're most excited to learn about today. And like I said, we will, yeah, address all of these. I know the activities, the materials. That's always what I'm most excited about. I love to learn from other people, and so that's a part of what we can do here today as well. Using that chat to, offer any resource share and things like that as well. So let's get started. We do have a lot of material to cover. We want to make sure that we have time to cover it and also I want to be able to answer any questions that you have as well. Just a reminder that chat is open. If you're having any kind of technical things going on, let us know. But also, yeah, feel free to share and use that chat as well. So, welcome to Enhancing Teletherapy Essential Tools for Speech Therapy Success. This is an introductory level webinar on school based teletherapy for speech language pathologists. And I think it's important to kind of get started with just a great reminder from ASHA on teletherapy in general. The American Speech Language Hearing Association statement reads, telepractice services must conform to professional standards, including but not limited to our code of ethics, the scope of practice, professional policy documents, and other relevant federal, state, and institutional policies and requirements. So just kind of a good idea, I think, to start off with that. If you are following along on the participant worksheet, that fill in the blank there will be code of ethics there. So we're going to get right into a question here, a good way to start off. We've got a true false here. We're going to join the quiz. I think for this one, you will enter your name just the first time, and then that will be there for the remainder of the webinar. So you can get your name entered there. See lots of people joining there. That's awesome. So our first question will be, according to ASHA, telepractice must adhere to the code of ethics and professional standards. True or false? And we'll give everybody, you can always have the Slido gives us our countdown counter there, so we can always use that. Awesome. Absolutely. Yeah, that is true. We must adhere to that code of ethics and our professional standards as we would in person, just with telepractice. Now we'll get into some helpful tools to make our sessions successful. We want to make sure we get started and prepare, and so that's a big part of this. So, for a successful teletherapy session, there are a few considerations to think about. Obviously, since we are talking in the virtual realm and with teletherapy, Wi-Fi and internet capability that's huge. That's really important. It's important to understand the limits of your service based on the demands of streaming, which is the bandwidth of your internet. For example, if your internet speed can't sustain video streaming of several videos at one time, for instance, you may need to make sure that only one device in your household is streaming if you're in a session. I know for some of us, we've got multiple kids maybe in the house, especially sometimes in the summertime or school holidays. For me, it's those are considerations we have to think about. High-speed internet is optimal for teletherapy. That will help avoid any slow or glitchy, connectivity issues during your sessions. A backup plan for when your router or modem is not working properly is also important. You might want to consider what, your data plan is, using your hotspot in case of an emergency, things like that. Um, you should know this might disrupt any video uploads. You may be limited to audio only, depending on the service and your connection there. Some people also find multiple monitors can be helpful for teletherapy. I have two monitors, and I really appreciate the flexibility and just organization that provides. Some people don't, that definitely totally up to you. You also want to think about your microphone and headphones, especially for our articulation sessions. We really want to make sure that clear sound quality is coming through. Plenty of people have, I feel like that's something that everybody has their own preference on. Is it AirPods? Is it over the ear? And, different things like that. There are a lot of different options out there. So just something to consider. Also, the process of encryption, we always want to make sure we are safeguarding our student data. So the process of encryption is going to provide that safeguard against someone else accessing any electronic data from you or your student. And so you always want to utilize a platform that is COPPA, HIPAA, and FERPA compliant. And that just makes sure that we're being compliant in protecting our students' data. Student and facilitator digital literacy is also an important thing to consider. Digital literacy refers to the ability to use and understand, kind of that electronic digital world. And it's a good idea to kind of get a check with both the student and the facilitator that will be helping the student during your sessions. A lot of our students today have been using digital devices really, I mean, since early childhood. So they're really familiar, they're really comfortable with technology, which is great. But it's a good idea to have, just an idea of what the student and facilitators' experiences are there. Are they familiar with a computer or a tablet, especially for some of our younger students? Maybe they're familiar with, a piece of technology at home, but this is going to be different using, say, a Chromebook or something like that at school. So just a good idea to check on that. Can they navigate, audio controls or different things. And then the facilitator, just making sure they're familiar with settings, being able to get into the link, for your session, for instance. I always thought it was a good idea to practice, maybe with the facilitator before the student starts therapy, before maybe you start for the school year or something like that, just practicing utilizing that platform. Another consideration is your background, both for you and the student. Obviously, we want to make sure we're in a private location. We don't want any distractions going on for us or for the student. We want to think about things like lighting and background, just making sure that those things are pleasing, but also not distracting as we're setting up our workspace and equipment and things like that. Practice and setup are really important. I think, as a therapist, for me, it always made me feel a lot more, comfortable and confident knowing that I had reviewed and gone over those things before. And then just having fun break activities ready. I know we all plan for our sessions so well, and then it's nice to be also have, maybe we need a transition activity, maybe we need a brain break and things like that, just to have those options that are ready as well. So now we'll move into another test your knowledge question here. Another true false here. Platforms should be FERPA, HIPAA, and COPPA compliant. True or false? We always joke about having Jeopardy music here on this countdown. Maybe we'll do that one of these days. Absolutely. Yep, this is true. And we've got one more here before we get into platforms. Preparation for a teletherapy session should include evaluation of, technical skills of the student facilitators, testing your internet capability and connectivity, assessing equipment like headphones or speakers or microphones, or all of the above there. Absolutely. All of these are really important and things we should think about as we prepare and kind of get organized for that session. And now we'll just briefly look. I know most people are familiar with platforms, but we'll briefly look at the most commonly utilized platforms for teletherapy services. Zoom, Google Meet, and Microsoft Teams are all, really popular. Of course, we always want to think about the unique needs of our own, practice and try out the different platforms to determine which one best suits our needs and benefits our practice there. Zoom is the first one we'll look at. It does offer a feature-rich platform. It has a wide range of tools. There's screen sharing, annotation, there's breakout rooms, there's different virtual backgrounds you can use. All of that, enhances therapy sessions. There are things like polls and reactions that the kids really like. They can put a reaction emoji or, use the raise hand feature. It does make it ideal for educational settings where you do need a lot of engagement and you want that engagement. Zoom does provide valuable recording and transcription capabilities, enables, help for documentation and, if you wanted to refer back to things within your session. It also gives the therapist control over participants' actions. So you can, remove participants if needed. You can mute people if needed. Remote control is a great option and a lot of fun for students. You as the host can also take that back quickly as needed. So I think, that's important. Security is a priority with options like waiting rooms and password protection and different host controls. So that's, really important as well. All of these platforms have great advantages. Zoom in general, I think, tends to have more interactive features that therapists and, students really like to use. There are also some new AI features within Zoom, with meeting summaries and other, advanced features that are really nice as well. Google Meet is also great. That's a streamlined solution due to a lot of school systems using Google Workspace. So it's going to work really well with Google Workspace apps and is convenient, for those organizations that are already, really locked in with Google. It's user friendly. It's really reliable. It's straightforward to use. I know a lot of people that are just well versed with Google. This makes sense. There's not other, downloads or installations that you need. That's really accessible for users, in all different backgrounds. And it is cost effective since it is bundled, with that Google Workspace, especially for the schools that are already, using that for sure. And then Teams is also a versatile platform, seamless integration with Microsoft 365. So this is another really, convenient thing for districts that might be using something like 365 for education. This is convenient, for document sharing, collaboration within the same ecosystem. There's great security as with these other two platforms, and, compliance features. Teams does provide, collaboration tools like OneNote and Whiteboard. So that's a neat thing as far as, collaborating within therapy sessions. So we'll get to another test your knowledge here. We've got another true false. Zoom offers security assistance and allows you to remove unwanted participants if needed. True or false? Absolutely. This is true and one of the great features of Zoom for sure. Now we'll move into kind of planning and organization. I think this is an important piece, just with in-person sessions, we have that planning and organization piece that's really important. I think it helps us as providers, it helps the student, it helps everything run smoothly. And so there are a variety of tools that can help, manage your schedule, for instance, paperwork, different daily tasks. The decision on what to use, of course, is always going to depend on your personal preference and your setting and your needs there. Google Workspace and other calendar apps really make good choices. There are a lot of free options on things like Teachers Pay Teachers and other platforms and apps such as Chalk and SLP Now. Chalk allows you to customize your schedule by day or week and build your calendar. This can be linked with Google, so you're able to sign in via Google for access to this. SLP Now is a subscription based platform. They do have a lot of great templates. They've got a lot of blog posts as well on session planning and organization. If you have other ideas, I'd love to hear those in the chat and kind of learn from each other today. These are just, kind of an overview of the way that we can use some technology to help and in our efficiency and also that organization for sure. All right, we have another test your knowledge here. I fill in the blank. What is an example of a digital asset to help with session planning and organization? Got three choices here. I'm just looking for one answer there. Awesome. Yeah, Teachers Pay Teachers. I know in person, I used a lot of their materials, and similar to a lot of platforms, they have a lot of great, digital things there. So Teachers Pay Teachers is definitely a good thing to check out. And then just thinking about other, technology considerations here, there are a lot of different data collection apps, other subscriptions that can be really helpful in taking good data in your therapy sessions. This is an important, piece to what we do. It's an important component. I know most therapists that I know, and myself included, use kind of a combination of our traditional shorthand tally marks, whatever system that we have, and then also more narrative data. And so there's a few different ways we can do that. Speech therapy toolkit, as well as Super Duper data tracker. That's an app. Those are a couple of examples just of things that are out there. Speech therapy toolkit offers different progress monitoring tools. They've got some present level assessment data options, which are neat, and then goal banks as well, based on data and what you enter there. Also, they have the ability to store data in their secure system. So they have their own secure system there. SLP now, as we've mentioned, again, they've got some great, blog posts and recommendations for various data collection tools and efficiency. Tips, things like that. And then Super Duper. I know we all know Super Duper from, their picture cards and different things, but they have a really neat website with a lot of digital assets. They have a data tracker app. They also have free data sheets that you can download. There are other apps out there just searchable in, your app store that might fit your personal needs there as well. Our smartphones can also really come in handy. You can search for apps like these there. You can record, language samples, et cetera. And so that's a neat way to utilize that. Always, we want to make sure that we are keeping student confidentiality and privacy in mind when we are recording any language samples and things like that, as you're storing and then also deleting, those files just to make sure everything is kept confidential there. There are many great AI options for sessions as well, for organizations and other tech considerations. I won't dive too much into AI in this webinar because, spoiler alert, we have an exciting upcoming webinar on AI and teletherapy in December, and we'd love for you to join us for that. So we're going to dive into a lot of the great AI options there. And if you are following along on that participant worksheet, you will be looking for recording for language samples to fit in there in that fill in the blank. And so now we're going to look at another test your knowledge. We just kind of talked about the tech considerations and different things. And so, which of the following can your smartphone be used for? Calculations, recording, data collection, or all of the above? Yeah, absolutely. A lot it can do and help us with, and those are all great features and different things that we can use there. Another important part, I think, of what we do, have IEP meetings, we have parent meetings, we do different collaborative things. And so, like in person, those virtual IEP meetings are going to require some planning and organization. You're going to want to make sure that there's secure internet for all team members, especially parents, if maybe they're in a more rural area, if they have any, difficulties with their cell phone service or their connection, Wi-Fi, things like that. Overall, I think it's important to remember that virtual meetings can take a little more time and maybe a little more patience than in person, especially if maybe a district is newer to the virtual world. Um, you want to be prepared to screen share and present that IEP paperwork. You want to be mindful of electronic signatures. That's another consideration for those that are attending virtually. District consistency overall, I think, is really important. Many districts have protocols in place for electronic signatures. And so, of course, you always just want to follow that district protocol there. DocuSign, for instance, is one example that many use. You also might want to consider providing a tip sheet to parents or maybe even the team as a whole, just to prepare for these virtual meetings. Test things out beforehand, have that backup plan like we talked about earlier. for connection or other issues there. Overall, we want to make sure we're always ensuring privacy and confidentiality. And I love this quote from Asha. Virtual platforms can provide useful accommodations for families and team members to participate remotely when needed. I know I had an experience right, I think it was probably 2021, right after the initial kind of get back into things after the closures during 2020. And the school that I was working with at the time actually had an increase in parent participation because they had these other options where they were able to participate virtually, which was a really nice thing, for them, and a nice thing to see there. So if you are following along with that participant worksheet, you'll be looking for electronic signatures as that fill in the blank there. So we'll get one more test your knowledge, and then we're going to get into the fun stuff, which is all of our materials here. According to ASHA, virtual platforms should not be used for IEP meetings. Is this true or false? Absolutely, that is false. It's ASHA has said, that can be a great resource to use for those meetings there. So now we're going to get into my favorite part. Personally, we're going to look at some popular sites, popular material sources, for these engaging materials to use in therapy sessions. Again, feel free to use the chat to comment on, things that you love or things that you found that your students are really thriving with and enjoying in therapy. I'd love to learn from each other in this regard. The materials and different sites and sources that are listed and gone over here today are linked in the resource section of your participant worksheet if you wanted to, investigate any of those a little further. The first thing to look into is virtual backgrounds and green screens. I think these are really fun ways to engage students in therapy sessions. I know these are just a few examples here, just from web-based searches. Zoom, as we mentioned earlier, has great virtual backgrounds available through their app. Some permission settings might be different based on like your organization or your individual account. Green screens are also great. They can provide a fun way to interactively. I've seen so many cool things where people are, celebrating different events or holidays and really being able to target student interest if there's a particular character, colors or different things that the students really like. They can get so excited to log on and see that, you have, created, that background or things like that. You can also utilize Google Slides. Most of us are familiar with that Google Workspace, and you can, open a slide deck and set up a virtual therapy room where your students can actually click on the different activities, different icebreakers, transition, brain breaks, any of those types of things they can actually choose. And that gives them, a neat option during the therapy session. YouTube has just great videos and kind of how-tos on setting up those virtual therapy rooms like that. So just some neat options there, as even just things like this as students are entering your therapy room. And then these are just a list. I could probably, go on for days on this stuff, but these are a few of my favorites based on both my personal use in therapy sessions and then others that have been gathered from colleagues of mine that, I mentioned earlier, I love to learn from other therapists, and I think it's the collaborative nature of what we do is a really neat thing. And so a lot of these have been recommended, to me, and of course I've been able to use. And so it's a really neat way to engage, the students. There's a lot of options out there. Some are paid subscription offerings that, people choose to subscribe to. Others are free and then kind of have the free option, but also options for paid within the platform. So boom cards, for instance, there's a lot of free, great, material on there, but then you also have the ability to pay for those. Teachers Pay Teachers is another. They've got a great digital easel. Some of it is, free resources, and you can, pay for others there. Paid subscriptions like Ultimate SLP. I personally use that one, and there's a lot of great games and card decks and things that you can tailor, your activities to. SLP Toolkit, SLP Now. I know I've mentioned those already in the webinar. Those are pretty reasonably priced with many activities in one platform, and some of these even have like the lesson plans and the goal banks that I mentioned earlier as well. Organizations like Super Duper, I mentioned that earlier, now have digital assets as well. I know in person, we all remember those, 10 card holders, and Super Duper has done a really nice job with their website, kind of moving that into the virtual realm as well. YouTube is just great. You can find, age appropriate shows or movie clips. Different YouTube shorts can be so great for seasonal themes or maybe a social pragmatic scenario or lesson and things like that. Highlights Magazine also has a fantastic website. I know many of us remember that, if you're as old as me, from your off like dentist or doctor's office, that they have a great website. Their jokes of the day and different puzzles and things like that. PBS Kids, it's educational, but it's fun. ABC Yaw and Pink Cat games, those are all really fun activities. The kids love it. You can also just do basic searches online for maybe puzzles or color sheets if you're doing maybe a themed activity around a different time of the year and you want it, or a different book or things like that, and you really wanted some kind of coordinating activities. You can get some really good things, if you search, and then you're able to vet those for your students as well. All right, one more test your knowledge here. Which of the following provides both free and paid resources options for your teletherapy sessions? We've got Boom Cards, your local newspaper, or Google Workspace. What do you think there? Which one of those would be the right fit? Awesome. Yeah, Boom Cards has both free and paid resources there. And we've got some fantastic stuff in the chat: Bamboozle, Story Dice site, and also with high school, this is a really important thing, CNN 10 News. So pulling in those current events. I love that. That's fantastic. One more here before we move into some other materials here. Super Duper is only available in print format. There are no digital options. True or false? Yeah, false. Thank goodness for us. They've got some great digital options now as well. And then again, just a few more of my favorites to highlight here. One thing that's really interesting and neat, I think, is social media, where I know there are a lot of Facebook groups, Instagram accounts. These are just a couple of my favorites that have really fun activities and ideas. There's also Peachy Speechy is one of my very favorite websites. She has great warm-up videos for articulation that the kids can use, or you could maybe send the link to parents for some carryover and practice at home. Toy Theater is great. They have things like spinners, dice, just for you to use, in addition to maybe something else that you're doing. Maybe you want everybody to spin before they say the sound that many times, or things like that. If you need kind of that electric or electronics, excuse me, dice or different spinner things. They have great things there. Epic Books or Books, or YouTube allows you to incorporate literacy into your sessions. And then there's a lot of great nature kind of themed things, as you see here: National Geographic, World Wildlife, Discovery. Those are some really neat learning sites as well. And then another one of my favorite things, and in my experience, the students really love these, are virtual field trips. World Wildlife, I mentioned on the previous slide, has really great toolkits. They've got videos and activities. You can visit a variety of national parks online. You could make it seasonal. I know in my experience, we have been to the pumpkin patch in October. We've watched reindeer, during the winter, things like that. A quick YouTube search, will bring up so many great options. Again, you always want to vet all of these things. Um, Word Wall is another one that's coming in the chat. I love that. So yeah, just reputable organizations that can really provide some fun and interactive, but also, targeting student interest and just making those things engaging for sure. And now we'll look at one more question here. Videos can be used in therapy sessions for warm-up activities for articulation, age-appropriate show and movie clips, virtual field trips, or all of the above. Absolutely. All of those, yeah, videos can provide us a lot of content there. Oh, sorry. Now we're going to move on to some common treatment areas. We'll go through this quickly because I do have a session, a clip to show you too that just shows you how all of this would look in a therapy session. But we are going to look at some common areas and think about how we could address the students' needs through teletherapy. So this first one would be a case study with a kindergarten student. Maybe he's got specific sound difficulties that he's working on, and his, articulation affects his intelligibility in the classroom. So for him, maybe we work on that highlights magazine that I mentioned. There's activities and jokes. There's also a hidden picture activity that is perfect for working on articulation goals. Students are able to click kind of in that big picture that you see and find the thumbnail pictures. And so they can practice their sounds, at different word or sentence levels. And I just think it's a great, it can target a variety of different goals, and the students really love it. As you can see, it's usually a silly picture, and so that they really love that. And if we think about language, maybe this, in this case, this is a second grader with some language difficulties like sequencing, categorizing like items and following directions. And so if we think about maybe using one of our virtual activities here, maybe we use something like ABC Yaw. They have a great make a cake activity. They have a lot of the make kind of activities that you can use depending on, the student's interest. So then we're able to look at things like sequencing. Maybe we're looking at things like, naming within categories, and definitely, of course, those following directions there. And then if we have a student, maybe this is a fluency case study. So we've got a fourth grade student working on fluency. And a lot of our students have this situation where they make a lot of progress in the therapy room. They have done a lot of work. They're doing well, but they are having maybe a little trouble generalizing those skills. So, how are we going to kind of practice that generalization? We could look at something like we looked at with the virtual field trips here. Maybe this student is very into, some particular animal or nature or science, and get one of those virtual field trips so we can engage in some question and answer tasks. We can use those strategies that we worked on, for fluency. And then I think this is one of those situations where, if this is an older student, I know in the chat we had that, CNN 10 recommendation. This would be something great where you can bring in some current events or different, even another type of virtual field trip for sure. And then if we look at social skills and pragmatics, we have a lot of students that might have difficulty engaging in those conversations. Maybe they love to talk about their preferred topics, but maybe non-preferred is a little more difficult, and different, classroom things that might be challenging. And so we could use videos like we talked about earlier. This is a screenshot example from the PBS Kids show Wildcrats. Maybe this, is really targeting that student's interest. The thing I love about videos is you're able to pause right in, real time and say, hey, what if this happened, or what happens next? What would you do in this situation? How does this, there are a lot of good questions, I think, that can be a really great starting point for some social discussions in general. And so that could be a neat way, to do that. We also see a lot of AAC users. This might be a situation similar to this case study, where in this case of, she's a 6-year-old student with limited verbal output. She has recently been introduced to LAMP Words for Life, and so she really enjoys using her device during class circle time to participate in the morning greeting songs and other circle time activities, within her class. And so if we think about using that, there's a lot of different options. We can have real-time display options. Maybe you are using a video recording. Maybe you're using Screencastify during real time. You could also have static displays. So maybe you've got a screenshot and then you have, kind of put arrows there to show that pathway for the student or the parent. You could use an iPad or that has, LAMP. I know I mentioned LAMP Words for Life for this particular student. Maybe that is on, your iPad and you could mirror during your session. There's some no tech options. You could have a pointer or other, manipulative where you have a printout of a core board like you see on the slide here, and you are manually showing those pathways. Overall, parent education, of course, is really important and essential, with our AAC students. You could also use a Google slide deck, like we mentioned earlier, with multiple activities, based on the student's needs there. So lots of different ways for AAC. And now I'd love to just consider a group session. I know that is a common thing with most of us. We are grouping, and we might have a situation like this where, hey, somebody's working on articulation, someone's working on following directions, someone's working on fluency. And so I'd love to, just quickly, what activities do you think you might use to target maybe some language and fluency and articulation if you had a kind of a mixed goal group session? And as you're thinking and kind of typing there, we will next see a little bit of a demo so that way you're able to see what some of these activities or different ways to use these activities, what that might look like in an actual session here. Sound loaded stories, picture scenes. Literacy based is just all of these. I love these examples. These are some of my favorite things to do. I think literacy just benefits everyone. It's a great way to get a lot of different goals addressed in a session for sure. Absolutely. Bingo, the kids, I love when they can, request, they may have a favorite thing that you've used before and they come in, it makes them excited about therapy. They're ready to, come in and they ask for things again. Yeah, the animation, the read aloud on YouTube. And then I love this, possibly a collaborative craft or team building activity. There are still really neat ways to do that virtually. I mean, you can do some things obviously virtual or electronic, like we saw with the make a cake activity. But there's also ways to, say the facilitator helps you get, the craft materials ready. Hey, we need, we're going to need some paper and crayons today. So we're going to, work on that. I think there's a lot of neat ways to do those for sure. So next, we're going to look at a clip using actually the Highlights magazine hidden picture activity that we saw earlier. Do you see everything okay?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to pick one of these. You see one that you might like to look at? I'm
I
try to
like
go
the
slow.
hidden I like the hidden picture walking the dogs.
This one,
The one
going
bottom
for a
left.
walk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. All right, let me scroll up. All right, so we're going to work on some describing. So I want you to think of something, look at these pictures.
Okay.
I want you to pick one, see if you can find it in this big picture here. Do you have one that you see?
Yes.
All right, where is it?
I see a bull and it's on the baby's head. It looks like.
It is on the baby's head. You got it. All right, so I want you to tell me, you can either talk about it as the hat or the bowl. I want you to describe it for me. Tell me a describing word about this bowl or this, since she's wearing it as a hat,
Yeah. I think it's kind of like a purplish color, and it fits mostly like fully around the baby's head.
Perfect. So purple tells us the color, and then where we wear it, or she's wearing it on her head. It
Yeah.
fits really well. So perfect. All right, do you see another one?
I see a cane, and it's the man he's holding a cane, but it kind of looks like the stroller on the baby's shoulder thing.
You're exactly right. All right, so now we're going to switch. You gave me a great describing word for the bowl, told me about the color and kind of what it looks like, what we use it for. Now I want you to tell me about the cane. What do most people use a cane for?
Usually if they can't walk, like they usually use it for like a stabilizer to help them walk around.
Mm-hmm. You got it. So we're going to talk about things. This is another thing we can use this activity for. So you told me a cane can be like a stabilizer for someone to walk. What's something else that you can think of that someone might use to help them walk or to stabilize them?
Well, if you broke your leg or something, you could use crutches.
That's perfect. So what do you think? So we could say that crutches and canes are the same because they do help us walk or they help us stabilize. Tell me how they're different.
Well, crutches, sometimes you usually have two of them, maybe one, but usually for a cane, you just have one of them of the cane.
That's right. So that's a big difference is that crutches usually we've got one under each arm kind of bracing us and the cane is just one. That's perfect. Awesome. All right, let's see. What do you see any others? Any other hidden pictures in this thing?
Um, I think I see a a seal. I think it might be on the man's arm because the color kind of matches.
Oh, all right, let's see. Let's go. You're exactly right. I was like, I'm just going to click around in there, but you found
Yeah,
it quick.
I could
Perfect.
yeah, I couldn't really. I just kind of paid like I could only see the color, so I just thought it'd be right there.
Hey, that was a good problem solving thing right there. All right, so the seal, you told me it's the right color, so it's blue, and that's kind of where you how you knew where to find it. What do
Mhm.
you think? What what do you think of? First thing when you think of a seal, what do you think of?
I kind of think of like uh, this one kind of reminds me of like a soft or like a kind of a sea animal that kind of swims.
Perfect. So if we were going to think about grouping things together, this is a sea animal, right? So if sea animal is our big category, what are some other things you would put in that category?
I mean, you could put like sharks or anything else that was in the sea along with that.
Perfect. So let's see, we've got a seal and a shark. Let's try to think of three other things that we could put with the seal and the shark in that same
Okay.
group, in that same category.
Well, there's certain types of fish. There's like sometimes dolphins and whales.
Perfect. So you can kind of see how that would go if you were targeting a lot of different areas there. And now, quickly, before we kind of move to our wrap up, let's look and maybe think of one area that we talked about, articulation, language, fluency. We've got AAC, we maybe got some social pragmatics there. Pick one of those areas addressed within our school environment and maybe select an activity for a possible teletherapy session. I know you guys had some great suggestions in the chat and also on our previous slide. Yeah, just think about maybe if you had an articulation student, what would you use or for language or social pragmatics and things like that. We'd love to hear your thoughts there. I think there's also space to for notes and things like that on your um, participation worksheet. I love Bingo with the target words. That was one of my favorites in person. And I was, I think one of the things it's a really nice way to, think of the things that maybe we did when we were in person. And there's a direct, correlation, or there's something very similar where we can use in the virtual environment to memory games. Yeah, for pragmatics, I really do. I love a lot of the YouTube shorts or different, clips or scenarios. I mentioned the Dabbling Speechy as one of my favorite Instagram accounts. She has a fantastic social pragmatic plan based on a clip. You can use it around the holidays or anytime really, but it's based on Elf. So you've got Will Ferrell, who is funny in the movie, and then she's got a whole thing on maybe how to use Elf in a social pragmatic things there. So yeah, a lot of those step by step, maybe sequencing, instructional things, the short films, those are fantastic. And again, it just gives you so much. There's so many opportunities to target things that the students are really interested in. They get excited about, for one, being on the computer. It's a normal part of their day. They love technology, but then thinking about really being able to highlight and target some of their interests. And I think that helps, for them to generalize things as we're working through conversations. So these are great. AAC modeling during play-based therapy. Absolutely. We've got to make it, functional. We've got to make it fun, but also engaging, but yeah, functional for our students. I love that. Wonderful. Well, I already can never believe how fast an hour goes. I love all this content. I love talking about these materials and ways to engage kids. So appreciate you being with us today. We're going to review what we've gone over. You can take a minute to look back at the learning outcomes that we reviewed at the beginning here. Those are in your handout as well. Yeah, we are able to now summarize those three considerations for a successful teletherapy session. We can also list 5 of the most commonly used speech therapy materials available for teletherapy sessions, and then identify 3 activities that might target multiple goals within one session. Next, you will be invited to take a webinar survey. One of the questions will ask you how well this webinar prepared you to achieve those outcomes. And so we will look forward to your responses there. We're going to wrap up now. We'll share the information on how to access the workshop evaluation and post test, and also have time for any questions. But I would love to see how you rate your knowledge of teletherapy now. I mentioned earlier we would kind of come back to this question. And I love that. Yeah, we've got some smiles there. That's good. And we've got that post survey link in the chat there. And we are updating that access. Sorry about that. We'll get that updated. Awesome. Love to see, yeah, smiles and everything there. And so that link, we're working on that in the chat. That will give you access to the evaluation and the post test. You'll complete the webinar evaluation and survey first, and then you'll be prompted to go to the next section for the post test there. Thank you. I think, Kristen, you were the one that alerted us to that. So thank you. Really appreciate that. As a reminder, you do need to meet the completion requirements, including passing the post test with 80% accuracy. And for speech therapists, if you would like for us to report your completion to ASHA, you will be asked to complete an ASHA CE reporting section. It'll be on this post workshop evaluation and test. So just be sure to answer those questions if you would like for us to do that. As a reminder, all other disciplines who meet the course completion requirements will receive a certificate of attendance, and that certificate of attendance will be emailed to you within 2 business days. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Our email is clinicalservices@elumatherapy.com, and we will stick around to give you time to complete those, to answer any questions that you have. And so we've got that link again in the chat. Let us know if there's any trouble with that. And then we have, I know I briefly kind of teased our AI webinar coming up. Registration for these free webinars is available at eLuma.com. It's under the resource tab, and there is if you click on the resources, and then you'll go down to webinars. And so you'll be able to register for those. Like I said, we've got information on IEPs, we've got the AI, we've got supporting session challenges in a virtual world, and also kind of a behind the scenes of teletherapy for schools, providers, and students, all coming up this school year. And we would love to have you join us for all of those. All right. Looks like we've got that link working now. Wonderful. Thank you again so much for attending today. We've got the knowledge now to enhance those teletherapy sessions, activities to target a lot of our goals within our teletherapy sessions, and also multiple goals within one session. Remember, to receive your certificate, you must complete that survey and answer the 10 questions on the post test. Good luck, and thank you very much. We will again stay on just to make sure no one has any additional questions, or if we can help in any way. But yeah, our website is listed there, eLuma.com. And again, if you go to resources and webinars, that will be your registration for any of our upcoming events. But our email is clinicalservices@elumatherapy.com if you have any questions about anything that you heard today, or anything else, if we can help in any other way with webinars or getting you set up for those. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you, guys. Again, once you get your links and they're working for you, you are good to go, but we will stay on in case I will stay on. I've got help in the chat, so I say we, but we will stay on. If you have any other questions, feel free to put those in the chat. We're happy to answer anything for you as well, but we do appreciate you attending, and we hope to see you at one of our upcoming events soon as well.